The Truggy is back! Today on Xtreme 4x4, our killer S10 truck-buggy combo gets suspension, steering, and fab help from the man who inspired it. Then, Jesse takes us to Moab, Utah, and a hellacious run up El Dorado Trail.
That and more right now on Xtreme 4x4.
This is a day that I know a lot of you guys have been waiting for, and I have too. Finally, our high-end S10 Truggy is back into the shop for a pile of work to do today. Now, we've been waiting for a bunch of parts to show up here at Xtreme, and the big brown truck finally delivered, and we are pumped. I'm talking some serious one-off parts here, like our coil-over shocks, four-wheel hydraulic steering kit, and some bitchin' 7075 aluminum links, plus some of the craziest axle components you have ever seen. Now, our S10 has come a long way from the $750 record that we first pulled in here, and it is really starting to look like the truck that inspired this build from the very beginning, a truck that we first saw in the pages of Crawl magazine. What first caught our eye on this truck was just its overall over-the-top attitude. We knew that it was so extreme, we just had to build one of our own. Then when we saw it lay the smackdown on the trails at our local off-road park, we knew we'd made the right choice. But considering the amount of work we have ahead of us today, we decided to call in some favors. And who better than the guy who built the exact truck we're copying, Adam Woodley from Wide Open Designs. Now this guy truly earns the name Young Hotshot. 25 years old, building some sick rigs that we've seen on the trails, and obviously you brought a new one. Tell me about it.
How you doing, Ian? This is the latest buggy that we built at the shop. This is my fourth full build. It's based off a Yukon Denali hood and grill. Engine is a 6-liter engine bored out to a 402 cubic inch motor. 60 front, 14 bolt rear, 4-link front and rear, Atlas transfer case. And for the shocks, 14-inch coilovers in the front and 16s in the rear.
The thing looks awesome. I think what I like about your stuff the most, Adam, is everything is different. No buggy's the same. That's something you strive for, right?
Correct, Ian. Everything pretty much one-off and custom that we do.
No cookie cutter, no chassis out the door, right?
Nothing out the door like that. Everything's pretty much a custom build when we do it.
Now, you've had a look at our S10 so far. What do you think, since we copied your idea? What do you think, how we done so far?
I think you're doing a pretty good job. Everything's coming out good on it.
Good. Now, you're not just here to hang out for the day. We're actually going to put you to work. You said that's what you'd signed up for. So, hey, I got you some gloves.
Sounds great.
Let's tear it up. Now, you guys know that tackling a project like this can take months, sometimes even years. When we got some more parts in the shop, we realized that before we could move ahead, we had to modify something we'd already built. Now, one problem that we found out with our chassis was when we got our radiator in here, it won't fit, so we have to modify it slightly. Now, to keep our 502 cool, we chose a Flex-a-lite radiator with their new Flex-a-fit tank system. Not only will these T-nuts help make mounting this radiator a lot easier, but these extruded aluminum fins will also help dissipate the heat to keep our 502 in check. We're going to be replacing the tubes that we removed with some flat steel plate. And this is going to create what's called a shear panel. Now, by adding some dimple dies into the sheet, we'll actually make it just as strong, if not stronger, than the tubing. Plus, hiding the radiator mounts underneath will make it look super clean. Now, when it came time to get the shocks for our project, we knew we had to get something pretty special. Not just because we're building the high-end show Truggy, but also because the axles that they're going to control are going to weigh in at just about 900 pounds apiece once they're fully built. So we got a set of Bilstein 9300 series shocks valved with their rock crawling specific valving. Now, this is a 2 5/8 inch body shock with a 7-inch hardened shaft, 1/2-inch spherical ball joints at either end, and 14 inches of travel. Now, the external reservoir will not only help keep the oil in the shock cooler, but once we charge it with some nitrogen, it'll help keep it from foaming. That foaming can affect the valving, making the shock a lot softer, and it'll lose its performance. Since we don't have the final weight of our truck dialed in exactly, we grabbed a bunch of different spring rate setups, all from Summit Racing. We're going to start with a 14-inch 500 lower and a 300-pound upper in the rear. When we mocked up this chassis, we only built the upper half of the shock mounts in single shear. Now with the new Bilsteins in place and wraps for protection, we can build the rest using some plate steel. Now the suspension links for this truck are something we've never used before, and we're pretty excited about it. They are 100% solid aluminum links from Summit Machine, and they're made out of 70-75 aluminum. Now it's a 2-inch lower and an 1.75 inch upper. Now the cool thing about the 70-75 is it's what's called a memory steel, which basically means if you load this link on an obstacle on the trail, it will bend, but once you get off of it, it'll return right back to its original shape.
Up next, a legendary Moab trail with an obstacle that defies logic when Xtreme 4x4 continues. In this week's Xtreme 4x4 Event of the Week, we hope you like body damage. Tell us where we're going, Jesse.
Just 7 miles south of Moab, Utah, sits one of the world's most intense trails.
That's the way to get it done.
Upper Hill Dorado is extreme. We generally rate most of the trails around here on a 1 to 5 scale. This would be like a 6. Put us out of our misery.
Okay. It's one of the groundbreaking trails for the extreme four-wheeling.
Only a half a mile long.
Short, but it's intense.
The obstacles on this river wash are unrelenting.
It just beats you up at every chance it can.
You're worried about your paint job, worried about your doors, worrying about things being pretty when you're done. Don't even try it.
For those that attempt El Dorado, cosmetic damage is the least of their concerns.
The trail's tough, and there's a high probability of something breaking.
Good old claw hammer.
95% of the people don't make it all the way through the trail.
It's a trail that can kick your butt and will.
No obstacle is more feared and respected than the waterfall.
It's pretty gnarly.
It's scary. It really is.
It's just a big vertical cliff. It's probably close to 80 degrees, about as vertical as you can get, and probably 10 or 12 feet high.
For the vast majority, they take the easy way up.
Most people have to use a winch. I've never seen anyone do it unassisted.
Joe Owen was driving a buggy and was expected to try the waterfall unassisted.
Everybody's kind of picked me under the gun because I'm in a buggy. There's some pressure because there's a lot of people watching.
He got up the falls with the help of a winch.
This isn't my buggy. I don't really want to roll it.
Dan Kressel is a working man.
I'd love to go buy a $40,000 Jeep, but I don't have $40,000.
He only has $3 grand in his Toyota. But that didn't mean Dan was going to winch through El Dorado.
I'll give it hell and see what happens.
On the trails around Moab, there's no shortage of sweet-looking, high-dollar rigs.
Jeeps are cute. Barbie drives one.
Dan's is not one of those.
Dan probably does have the ugliest vehicle out here.
I didn't really build it to be pretty. I didn't build it to go pick up chicks. I built it to do the most extreme trails I can find.
He had to build it with one eye on the trail and one eye on his wallet.
I always kind of wanted to build a Toyota truck, so I found this one for about $400. It was just a little stock truck some guy used as a daily driver.
3 years later, this machine is the best money could buy. Well, actually, the best Dan could afford.
I've got some 3-inch springs on the front. My front axle runs 529 gears, a full spool, hydro assist steering. There's dual transfer cases. It makes up for my lack of horsepower. I also have chromoly burr fields in it so that I can make it through trails like this. This is my 20R Toyota motor. I put a brand new tank of gas in it, another high dollar modification.
Some may snicker and have their doubts, but on the rocks, Dan runs it like one of those hoity-toity rigs.
Well, you know what, it's more of experience and skill than it is parts. Good parts help, but they'll never make up for an inexperienced driver.
Dan was looking to show up the doubters by going up the waterfall with only a strap.
My strategy is point it towards the sky and hold the gas down.
The strategy was sound, but few believed Dan and his low budget could pull it off.
I'm not sure if I want to watch, actually. Could be scary.
Heart and the will to succeed is never enough to get up the waterfall.
Well, I gave it hell, but I didn't quite make it. That's okay. I came up without any problems. Finished the trail all in one piece. I'm perfectly happy with the fact that I gave it my best shot.
His rig will never be featured in any glossy magazines. But to millions of low-budget wheelers who are intimidated by a level 5 trail, Dan Kressel is an inspiration and a hero.
This truck proves that you don't need a lot of money to come do some hardcore trails in Moab. But if you want to send me some, I could really use a new paint job.
Now, we've said it again and again that when it comes to Southern-style hill-killing trucks like our S10, the Rockwell Axle is pretty much king. And that's for a couple of reasons. Number one, they are incredibly strong. And number two, you can get a good used one for about half the cost of a good steering Dana 60. But when you start adding a big block 502, 46-inch tall tires, you're eventually going to meet the limits of this axle. Now, there's one guy who knows the 2.5-ton axle inside and out, and that's Randy Ouverson. Now, Ouverson Engineering has been making some of the most hardcore and innovative parts for the 2.5 Rockwell axles for years. Now, we're going to install a whole pile of their product. We're going to start with some of their 2-inch 47 spline chrome moly shafts, both front and rear. Up front, we'll be using their ultimate T-locker, and in the rear, we'll be running a full spool. But probably one of the coolest upgrades will be their Super 8 8-lug conversion that converts the outer end of the Rockwell over to the popular 8x6.5 bolt pattern, and we'll be able to run wheel brakes as well as their 6-piston calipers. Now this stuff, it truly earns the name indestructible. And to give you an idea of exactly how strong these things are, this is a 35-spline Dana 60 axle shaft, considered to be pretty tough. But when you compare it side by side to the Ouverson piece, these things here are definitely indestructible. Now this setup will turn what is already a bulletproof axle into a 100% bomb-proof assembly that can handle full throttle launches from our 502 into some serious terrain. Now in the rear, we're going to be installing a 47 spline full spool to deliver 100% power to both wheels at all times. But up front, we're using Ouverson's Ultra Locker. It's made specifically for their 2-inch shafts and is CNC machined out of billet alloy. Now the wave spring has been rated for over 1 million cycles. The 2-inch shafts are heat-treated chrome moly 47 spline pieces that use the original U-joint. But probably the best upgrade for this or any Rockwell axle is their Super 8 lug conversion. Not only does it give us the upgraded braking power at each wheel with new 6-piston calipers, it'll also allow us to mount up any 8x6.5-inch lugged wheel. Now the full hydraulic steering system for our Truggy is pretty complex, but it's very typical of what you see out there on 4-wheel steer trail vehicles. Now the whole package came from PSC power steering components, and it starts with a pump that's driven by the engine. Now that will deliver fluid from this reservoir down to what's called the orbital valve. Now the orbital valve takes input from the steering wheel and delivers fluid out to the front steering ram. But fluid is also diverted into the passenger compartment where we'll control the rear steer valve with this joystick, and that will run our ram on the rear axle. Now the rams themselves are built specifically oversized to handle the size and weight of our 46-inch tall Mickey Thompson tires. They have an 1.5-inch shaft and a 10-inch stroke to allow us to use the full turning radius of that Rockwell axle. They also come machined with integrated mounting flanges that'll make mounting these cylinders easy as pie. And designing the mounts will be Adam Woodley, our guest builder who provided the inspiration for our S10 with his sick machines we've seen out on the trails. You done yet, Adam?
Man, you're crazy.
He's got a great knack for suspension geometry and chassis design. Not to mention, he is one funny guy.
What I'm doing now right here is, you see what happened was, we're gonna make us a ram out of this here cardboard mount, put it up here on this truck, it's gonna be all good.
And anyone that knows fabrication has gotta love a guy who can come in, do the job right, without having someone look over their shoulder. If someone was to call you up right now with $149 in a job, how long would it take for you to build him a buggy?
A long damn time. What I've concentrated on are really fine detailed rigs, cleanliness, attention to detail, and just really looking at going the extra mile on the build. You know, they're coming to you and they're spending a substantial amount of money. They want it right when they're done. And they're finding people that'll pay for it.
Hey, but we got Adam for free today, so he'll join me after the break to strip our S10 bare. Today on Xtreme, we brought our S10 Truggy back into the shop for one final day of hardcore fabrication, and plus we had Adam Woodley, the guy who built the S10 that started it all, here to help us. What do you think, Adam? Good day?
Man, I think we had an awesome day. It was a lot of fun helping you out in the shop. I really enjoyed it.
What do you think of the truck in general? I think it
turned out really well. It's great to sit up on the tires and you kind of get the whole effect of it.
And now, even though it looks done and it's a rolling chassis, this is the part that takes a regular trail truck into that next level where you take it all apart and strip it for paint, powder coat, and chrome.
Good.
Holy, that's a pile of parts. Well, there you go. It took us 8 months to put all this together and less than 2 hours to tear it all back apart. Now, even though we got a pile of welding and grinding left on the chassis, it's good to have this thing taken apart and ready for powder coat. You know, I couldn't have done it without you, Adam. Thanks for your help today, brother.
Man, I appreciate you having me on the show.
And it was cool having you here because you built the exact same truck before, you're able to steer us around some stuff that we thought might be an issue and sort of deal with that right away. So it's cool having your eyes here. And when we get this thing all together and ready to tear up in the woods, I'd love to have you back out, bring a couple buggies and have some fun.
Oh, I'd love to come out and play with you guys. I know you can't wait to drive it.
It's a little ways from that now, though.
Just a few bolts here and a few bolts there.
Man, if only Chris was here to clean all this up, we could go have a beer. See you next time.
Man. I hate it to be Chris.